Welcome to another episode of the Two Shots Podcast. Today, we're going to be joined by a cast of characters here. We're going to be joined by the OG himself, Triple OG over here, the one and only Paul Garcia. Paul, how's it going, man? How you doing in this cold weather?
I'm actually in. I'm in a different part. I'm not in San Antonio, so it's actually a little warmer here. I was surprised that everything's shutting down over there, from what I saw and heard from my family. But I'm doing well, Joe.
Oh, cool, man. Well, thanks for joining us. And we're also here by our other Two Shots alum. We got Rudy Campos Jr., host of Sweep the League. Rudy, thank you for joining us. How you doing?
Good. Appreciate you having me on. And yeah, this cold weather, it sucks because I lost weight and now I don't have the fatness to keep me warm anymore.
So you're over there shivering, man.
Yeah, literally my office is freezing too because it's an old garage. So yeah, I'm freezing.
Yeah, you should have just had some. You should have made you some abuelita hot chocolate.
Well, I have coffee, so I'm keeping warm. I'm not gonna say they're spiked, but it could be.
Oh, hey, I miss the old Rudy. You know that.
Oh, I know. I miss him too. He was warmer than he is now.
Yeah. He was a lot of fun. He his antics on social media once he had one or two shots of
podcast, something like that.
Yeah. Well, we got to go back and look at the footage. I'm just playing.
I think it's been erased.
Yeah, for the best. And we're also joined here by our good friend Wesley Perkins. Wesley, it's been some time, man. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, guys. Hey, it's great to be on. Excited to talk some sports with y'all.
Yeah, and the last but not least, we have the one and only Benjamin Bornstein, the official prospect aficionado here. Ben, how's it going?
Fantastic, sir. A little warmer than you guys here in Atlanta, so I've got that going for me.
Well, there you go. At least you're not freezing over here like we are, man.
Not yet.
The temperature, I think, is hovering right above freezing. Last I checked, we're about 33. It should be closer to 32 degrees now. Expecting rain. Everybody's just trying to stay warm. People at H-E-B are thinking this is the apocalypse, the end of the world, hoarding the toilet paper, buying up all the food, the usual.
That checks out.
Yeah, acting a fool. And I'm just here at home just like, it's just another day, man. When we go to the groceries after the cold spell, the shelves will be full once again, so it was all for naught. You know how people overreact here, Rudy. You know how it is.
Oh, I know. Just as long as they stay away from my beer and stuff, then we're good.
Hey, Rudy has like a liquor store right in your own backyard. You could literally just jump the fence and you're there.
Yeah, I have a liquor store. I've got a dollar store right behind me, and I've got all the ingredients of a perfect San Antonio neighborhood with the druggies and everything that live in the alley behind me. So yeah, I live in the perfect spot in San Antonio. I get it all, the culture here.
You got lots of stuff to keep you warm, man.
All the culture.
Yeah.
Man, he should go live with his security camera that he has in the backyard. That would be entertaining.
Just put it on YouTube. Just let it record live. Just keep it going.
If there's ever a way to grow my TikTok channel, it's definitely posting that just in the alley alone.
Yeah,
I'll have
the transients, in the alley. The fights and stuff that go on back there, the antics.
Transients, whatever, they're all back there, man. So.
Oh God,
that's a show for another day. That's for the Sweep the League After Dark.
Yeah, I can't even stay up past 8 o'clock anymore. You're lucky I'm on right now.
That's for the 3 Shots podcast.
Yeah, 3 shots.
So we're going to go ahead and get right into this, man. We've been away for quite some time. Full disclosure here. My dad's been sick and I've been starting a new job here. So I've been away because I've been a little busy, but it's good to get back into the swing of things and recording a new episode of Two Shots with everybody here, my friends with me. So that's even better. And we got some good news that came through the Twitters earlier today, and that is that Jeremy Sochan has been officially asked to go ahead and join the Rising Stars game, the Jordan Rising Stars game over at the All-Star Weekend. So that was big news for Spurs fans around the Alamo City and around the globe here, that Jeremy Sochan, we had suspected, that he might get the nod. He might, be given a solid here and be asked to be part of this, but to actually be official. I mean, that's something that is, I guess, a small victory for Spurs fans in this dismal season that we're having. I've been happy that Jeremy's been playing great, but this right here is unexpected and surprising, and I'm all here for it, man. We'll go ahead and get your take. We'll start with you, Ben. What did you think when you heard the news?
Oh, I was ecstatic. I mean, it's nice to see someone from San Antonio get the recognition they deserve. It's lovely. Because that certainly wasn't the case with DeJounte Murray when he was in San Antonio getting to All-Star games, even though he probably deserved it. So it's nice to see that people recognize Jeremy Sochan for what he's done this season. And frankly, since he's gone to the one-handed free throw approach, he's been phenomenal shooting the ball. His confidence is growing. He's a good fun player, man. He's just that's the kind of guy you want on your team. So I'm ecstatic. I hope he's in it this year. I hope he's in it next year. And I'm just hoping that he's on the winning team, whatever team it is.
Yeah, and I'm just sharing the screen right now to show everybody, hey, the Spurs officially put it up, and they're saying congratulations to one Jeremy Sochan. But yeah, I was excited too, Ben. And Wesley, what did you think? I mean, what were your initial thoughts when you found out that Jeremy Sochan had been asked to officially join the Rising Stars challenge or the Rising Stars game?
Well, like Ben just said, it's great that he's getting that recognition, but more so than anything else, I think that I have to eat a little crow because I'll be honest. When the Spurs drafted him, I was not on board. I didn't think that with his limited skill set at the time that he was going to develop this quickly offensively. I think we all knew he could guard all 5 positions, but to see him, to echo Ben, to see him grow, his offensive foundation. It's been pretty phenomenal, in this stretch, especially. I know he's averaging, about 18 points over these last 5 games. And so that's great. I think he's a versatile kid and he's got just so much upside. So I wouldn't doubt that this becomes an all-star nod at some point. I really think that he is going to be a focal point of this team for a long time. And, maybe one of the stats that we have to kind of take a look at going forward, Joe, I just like quirky, weird stats. What is his record or what is his stats with each hair color? And I know his best so far has been the one he has currently with like the blonde with the Fiesta highlights. But no, really, I mean, in all seriousness, he's been a very bright spot. It's nice to hear some Spurs pleasantries. I know we've had enough of the Steven Jackson smack talk lately to fill up a room. And so it's nice to see that the young man is getting his just due.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to go ahead and go to you next, Rudy. What were your initial thoughts when you found out Jeremy Sochan had been officially asked to join the Rising Stars game?
Like the other guys, just echoing what they're saying, it was a great accomplishment by him. Now, coming from a guy that started the season off very slow, very inconsistent, obviously, Stevie Wonder probably could have shot way better than he was in the beginning of his NBA career. Ben giving me that look, but I mean, it's true.
Come on, man.
He was shooting terribly at the beginning of the season, but it shows the development of the player that Jeremy is going to be in the NBA for the San Antonio Spurs in the future. I mean, the last 5 games, he's averaging about 19 points. But look at the last 7 games. I mean, he's shooting well over 50% from the three-point line, well over 80, almost 90% from the free throw line. He's averaging right around 18, 19 points per game in these last 7 games. Well deserving of it. It just shows the consistency that he's getting with the minutes as well by Pop. Pop has a lot of confidence in him. Let's be real. With Devin sideline, it's opened up many doors for Jeremy to be Keldon's right-hand man. So kudos to Jeremy, continue to improve. It's the start of a great career for him, I believe. Will it be an all-star not? It's way too early to tell, Wesley, but you never know. I mean, we have seen crazier things happen, like Hudley being drafted to the Pro Bowl today, apparently, after he only had like 1 touchdown pass all season. So we've seen crazier things happen in sports, but kudos to Jeremy.
And what about you, Paul? Because, some Spurs fans, which will not be named on this show,
Oh, boy.
went ahead and did say that, after I think it was 8 or 9 games that Jeremy Sochan was just going to be a bust, that they were done with him and he would never amount to anything in the NBA. And that was a trash take. But we're not going to name names here on that show because I'm not petty like that. I could be, but I'm not. So
Should be.
After all that, it seems like a lot of people are eating crow because some Spurs fans did say some not so nice things about Jeremy early on in the season without giving the rookie a chance to really show us what he has and, his development throughout the season. So what did you think when you heard the news, that he was selected to the Rising Stars game?
Kind of echoing what Rudy said there. He's making the best of an opportunity that rookies in San Antonio usually don't get. The fact that he got to start as a rookie, the fact that he's getting a lot more minutes, the fact that Pop's letting him, just go out there and do what you can. Just kind of try different roles, try different things, be aggressive in your shot selection. And we've seen that he's definitely increased that volume since Devin Vassell was injured, like Rudy mentioned there as well. And so I think that that's a really good thing is that he's not only is he getting the minutes, but he's making the most of those minutes. And it's just crazy. Just the transformation he's made offensively with that shot, the fact that one-handed shot for the free throw line. I mean, we have a 21-game sample size where this dude's shooting over 37% from three now. And then, you're just making jump shots now. That's going to just improve your confidence. And you see how he's just kind of, creating plays in isolation, running the pick and roll at times. It's really just been really impressive to see. And I think that, for those that were disappointed with him early on to start, you're expecting just a defensive specialist kind of player, a player who moves the ball very well. You weren't even expecting him in year one to start shooting, decently. And the fact that he's already doing that now, just a month in after changing his shooting form is just a really good sign for the future. And again, I just think that those expectations, they didn't really read the draft profile of him, where he was supposed to be as an NBA player, those fans making those kind of comments. And so, yeah, I just think that he's going to continue to improve. And it's just, he has the rest of this season to continue kind of just, try different roles, try to do different things offensively and then on defense as well until, Devin gets back. And then also see, how does he fit in when Devin does come back?
Yeah, which leads us to our next topic here, which is going to be what Jeremy Sochan has done in the last few games, with the San Antonio Spurs. And while the Spurs have not been winning very many games, let's be honest, but that's not really what Spurs fans are expecting out of this team, so far into the season, more than halfway through the season, where Spurs fans are really looking for that high pick in the NBA draft to hopefully turn around the team's fortune. But over the last couple games here, and I'm using this Twitter handle that I saw here at the lead that gave some decent stats about Jeremy Sochan over his last 7 games. He's averaging 18 points per game, 5.9 rebounds per game, and 3.3 assists per game. Those are not too let's say stats that are too shabby here. I mean, he is a rookie, and from where he started in the beginning of the season to where he is right now, I mean, he's making the best of the opportunity, and he's shown that he's willing to do whatever it takes to work on his game, including shooting that weird one-handed shot, free throw shot. And it's not, people were making fun of him because of that, but it just goes to show that he doesn't really care what other people think. He's just trying to go ahead and make himself better. And by doing that, he's learning that repetition over and over, which is going to help him become a better free throw shooter. And we've seen that develop here as of late. So, kudos to him for just, working on his offensive game, because quite honestly, that wasn't one of his strong suits. If you're looking at his scouting report prior to the draft when he was playing with Baylor, he was known more for his defensive prowess, not so much for his offensive game. But that's something that he's worked on. And I mean, I'm happy for the kid. He's getting the recognition he deserves. And now people are starting to take notice of him and talk about him a little bit. And I'd have to say, quite honestly, that I think he's one of the more interesting rookies to enter the NBA this season, so really good numbers there. So we'll go ahead and go with you, Wesley. What did you think about these stats from, Jeremy Sochan over the last couple of games?
Yeah, I was reading this afternoon. I think it was the 7-game sample size that Paul was talking about a minute ago. It's like 51% from the floor, 51 from three, and 85 from the line. If you have longevity, of those kind of statistics offensively, that's unreal. I mean, and he's starting to put those kind of numbers together on a consistent basis. But it's also the assists, guys. I think one of the things that I've been most impressed about him offensively is watching him kind of take over in a point, forward type of role where his vision is much better than I would have ever anticipated. He made some passes the other night, to be honest with you, against the Wizards with it. It was kind of outside of the first quarter, it was kind of a throwaway game, but he had like 15 points in the first quarter. And it was the things like people cutting back door, him finding on no look passes. he has a lot of the it factor that we look at when we're saying, is in positionless basketball that we see nowadays that really is sustainable. I mean, there's no doubt about it. His statistics over this period of time have been astronomical, and dare I say, he's been the best player on the floor. I mean, Keldon's had moments. He's certainly a really good scoring, guard or forward, but he's, defensively, Keldon has regressed. I feel like Sochan is somebody that you're going to be able to really rely upon on both ends of the floor. He's going to be a great two-way player. And like I said, I mean, the statistics alone don't lie, but it's more so when he's on the floor, the energy of the team is better. We saw that even if you just looked last night, you saw that when he was off the floor, immediately the Spurs looked very lethargic. There was no direction. So those are things that as you look forward to, it's not all lost this season. You see the great development of these young players, and certainly Sochan and what he's doing is tremendous right now.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Well said, Wesley. So we're going to go ahead and go to you, Ben. I mean, what are your thoughts here on Jeremy Sochan, his statistics over the last couple of games? What really stood out at you?
I mean, the three-point shooting percentage is certainly a number that's pretty crazy, and I think it's on 3 attempts a game, so it's not, it's not on huge volume, but it's not nothing either. It's kind of in the middle there. So that number probably sticks out to me the most, and certainly the 84% free throw shooting, which I think that number the 3-point shooting percentage number is definitely going to come down at some point. That's going to even out over the course of the season. But the 84%, I think, is much more tenable in keeping up near there with his new free throw shooting form. It's proven that it's working. And again, good on him for being willing to try something new and saying, I don't care if I look ridiculous. I don't care if people make fun of me. I just want to hit shots, and it's working. So good for him. I can definitely appreciate that. If he ever wants to go underhand, just let me know. I know a few guys he can get in touch with.
There you go. So you're going to go ahead and help his shot development come along there, Ben.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to go ahead and give you the acronym then. We're going to call you the coach.
Great.
Or
you're going to be known as the coach. So, Paul, what did you think about Jeremy Sochan's stats? I mean, what has really stood out at you over the course of the last couple of games?
Like I mentioned earlier, the aggressiveness, and I was just, as the other guys were speaking, I was just trying to find one of the stats that kind of measures that is, how often is a player driving in, really taking it to the hole, is one of the stats the NBA has called drives. And this is wild. I mean, for the season, he only drives about 6 times per game. Right now, during these 5 games, it's at 11.5. So he's doubled his drives. Like you can just tell, like we were talking about how he's an initiator, how he gets to almost be like the point guard out there at times. And so that's just really big. The fact that, like even Devin wasn't doing this when he was healthy, going to the rim, attacking the interior 11.5 times a night. So that's really big. The fact that, I know it's a very small sample size, just 5 games, but if he continues to do this, wow, that's going to be very interesting to see what that looks like by the end of the season. I will also say one thing, that reminded me of when Wesley said that he plays the point a lot, is that just his defensive assignments as well, his defensive versatility. I go back to that game against the Suns where Coach Pop in the 4th quarter had him all over Chris Paul, wanting him to defend him, guarding a point guard, and so that just shows his kind of versatility that he has out there on the floor.
Yeah, he does a lot of the intangibles, that you don't really see on paper, but his high energy, his athleticism, and just his willingness to do whatever it takes to win, I think is infectious with the team, and it makes them want to play better. It seems like they play a lot better when he's out there on the court. And Rudy, I mean, what has stood out at you with Jeremy Sochan over the course of the last couple of games? You've heard some of the other guys mention some of the other stats that have stood out, such as his 3-point shooting and also his defensive prowess. But what has stood out to you?
Well, I mean, obviously the 3-point shooting, shooting over 50% for these last few games, actually the last 7 games. One thing that stands out to me big time is free throw percentage. I mean, from a guy that couldn't really shoot the free throw at all, horrendous numbers, now shooting over 88% from the free throw line in these last 7 games is huge because, like Paul mentioned, 11 drives per game, you're going to get to the line. You're going to get fouled. So you got to make it count. Ben even mentioned, hey, he's only taking about 3-point shots per game, but he's making those 3-pointers count. So he's doing the small intangible stuff like the free throws, the 3-point shots. He's actually making them now. So that's going to increase his point production. That's going to help the Spurs, improve. It's not going to necessarily get them wins, as we can tell they're on a 6-game losing streak, but it's just the development part for Jeremy. But what I look at the whole package when it comes to Jeremy Sochan is right now he's playing what people were expecting Ben Simmons to be, that point forward, the guy who can defend all 5 positions, but except he's developing a jump shot that Ben Simmons has never developed. And that's even at the free throw line. So just to continue on the path of improvement, he's got to shoot. You know what shooters shoot? He's not necessarily a shooter, but it goes for him too. You've got to shoot the ball. You've got to stay aggressive. I'm really curious to see how he does against Sacramento. For me, that's a massive test because he's going against 2 really good players in Sabonis and Keegan Murray. So if he does really well, then I think he's on the right path.
Yeah, not only that, but what's surprising is Sacramento and how well they've played this season. They're currently, I believe, they're 3rd in the West. Compared to where they were at last season, they were one of the lowly bottom feeders in the Western Conference. Outside of the play-in game. But this year they've made a miraculous turnaround with the infection of talent they have, and kudos to their head coach as well. Bringing all those assets together and having them playing at a high level.
It's on top of its tree, Joe. I mean, it's you really seriously you can see the level of intensity and defense and things that are happening with their athleticism that they already possessed. And then you got Keegan Murray. Holy cow! I think it's finally all starting to come together for them. That's cool to see too.
Yeah, definitely. That Coach Popovich tree is really sprouting its roots all over the place, and I think somebody had also said some interesting stat that, there was a percentage of the coaches that are in the NBA right now, a high percentage of them actually are products of the one San Antonio Spurs and Greg Popovich. So it shows you how, the coaches, the San Antonio head coach coaching tree is spreading its roots all over the league. So good to see that. But let's go ahead and talk something else here. Let's go ahead and talk about what you guys think is going to be the ceiling for one Jeremy Sochan, because as Rudy had stated, kind of comparing him to one Ben Simmons, and a lot of Spurs fans were really high on Ben Simmons last season in the summer. There was all sorts of rumors of, hey, let's go ahead and they wanted the Spurs to make a trade for Ben Simmons. They think that he would be a great fit with the team, but you're seeing that, Jeremy Sochan could actually probably develop, in my eyes, and have a higher ceiling than one Ben Simmons, not only from a defensive perspective, but also from an offensive perspective, which is huge because that's one thing that Ben Simmons really isn't known for. He's more known for kind of deferring that ball a little bit and not so much, wanting to go ahead and take those shots. And it's not a knock on him. That's just, the type of player that he is. But, he has other aspects that are appealing to other teams. Jeremy Sochan here, I think, has a high ceiling, and he to me looks like he's on course to be a very popular player in years to come, and possibly even make the All-Star game consistently. Because fans are going to be really enamored with the way that he plays the game, and they're going to see the elevation of his game from season to season. So I'm excited for the ceiling of this young man. What do you think right now, Paul, as far as the ceiling for one Jeremy Sochan? What do you think the limits are for this young man?
No, I think just the fact that he's already adding this jump shot very early on in rookie in year number 1 is just really big for him, because like Rudy said, he has that potential to be like a Ben Simmons player. You got to remember, Ben Simmons in his prime, when he was at his best, he was an all NBA level player. He made the all NBA, I think, 3rd team one year. So even and without being able to shoot, so imagine if Jeremy can actually add a jump shot. So I think that's the thing, is like his ceiling right now is like, you can't really project it just because of the fact that he might actually add a jump shot here when we might have expected him not to do that. So I think that, yeah, like he's got a way to almost be a little bit better than Ben Simmons, or go to a more different level than him. And I know like Draymond Green was also a comp for him coming out of college, those kind of players. So you can be those kind of players, but now with an actual jump shot, which is going to add. We saw him put 15 points in one quarter just already. Just recently here, he had a 30-point night in his rookie year. So I'm very interested in what he turns into, and the fact that this is a great opportunity for him with this bad team right now, because he's going to get so many opportunities to be in different roles, to try different sets, to try different things on offense and on defense. So I think that this is a really good year for him to kind of explore those kind of avenues.
Yeah, no doubt, man. So let me go ahead and go to you next, Ben. What do you think the ceiling is for one Jeremy Sochan?
I think the ceiling is it's tough to say before the rookie season's even over, but the progress is there, assuming it continues. I mean, all NBA isn't out of the question. I don't know if he'll reach superstar status or if we'll see him that way. I think he can certainly make a couple all-star games, but the way to make all-star games is to essentially be a sexy player, and that requires you to be a good shooter. It requires you to break guys' ankles, because that's how the voting works now. The fan voting and even at times the media voting is kind of garbage. I mean, if you want to look at the different voting styles of people this year, look at how Trae Young's voting worked out. He was like top 6 in fan voting, media voting, and then by the players, he was voted the 12th best guard by the players. So, he does a lot of sexy things, that fans and other people see, but like clearly other players don't care for it, or they're being petty and didn't want him to get to an all-star game, which is also very possible. Trae Young is very hateable, especially in New York. I find Jeremy Sochan not to be quite hateable. So, I would say as far as player voting goes, he could do better, but yeah, I mean, like all NBA second team, I think that's a reasonable ceiling.
Yeah, and I like that. I like your take in regards to what the ceiling would be for one Jeremy Sochan. So we'll go with you next, Rudy. What do you think the ceiling is going to be for one Jeremy Sochan? Are you as high on him as me and Paul, or are you just kind of a little bit reserved like Ben? And let's go ahead and see the progression of his game.
Like Ben said, it's too early to tell because this is rookie season. Potential wise, I mean, I really don't have the comparisons. I mean, I know I mentioned Ben Simmons. I think he's improved way more than Ben Simmons ever has in his first few years in the league. And we saw how Ben Simmons turned out. I mean, he had an All-NBA roster. He had, I think, an All-Star appearance as well. So he's got a few accolades under his belt. But with Jeremy, what I look at now is I look at, similar comp to like Boris Diaw, a guy that's, very smart on the court. He's able to do everything, but I think his defensive mentality is a lot better than what we would have seen out of Boris Diaw. Guy that can run the point. He can make his teammates better. He has a really good basketball IQ. So, I mean, as far as all-star nods go, I mean, it's a good possibility. I mean, hell, anybody can make it into the All-Star game. I don't like fan voting. I hate fan voting because it's a popularity contest. I mean, it's like voting for the prom king or prom queen. The ugly kid's never going to get the nod over, the varsity football player or whatever. But nonetheless, I mean, even all NBA teams, it's going to be hard for him to make an all NBA team unless he really just balls out. But the key is the Spurs have to have a really good record and have to be in playoff contention. So as long as they're bottom feeders and he's averaging 35 points a game in 1 point or whatever, he may get the All-NBA nod, but it won't be first team. I mean, there's a lot of talent way ahead of him. When you're talking about Giannis and Jokic and Embiid and these guys, you got tons of talent ahead of him still. So it'd have to be a pretty special season for him to make All-NBA, and I could see maybe an All-Star nod eventually down the road, but definitely not anytime soon. But ceiling-wise, I mean, right now it's too early to tell. Give me, a way better Boris Diaw, just on the low end, which isn't a bad comparison at all for Jeremy.
Yeah. So okay, you be the tiebreaker here for us, Wesley. We have Rudy and Ben are being a little bit conservative. I'm high on Jeremy Sochan. I think Paul's like, hey, kid has potential. What do you say? What do you think the ceiling is for Jeremy Sochan?
Well, let's start with something that Greg Popovich said, right? Said that he didn't compare him directly to Manu, but he talked about the fact that he's unpredictable like Manu Ginobili and that he's kind of a wild card. So I think the Spurs themselves don't really 100% know yet what his ceiling can be because, it is exciting, the type of player that he is. It's infectious, and what he does on the court is certainly it's certainly needed, and I think that he's going to be very important for years to come. I would say this. Let's start with this first. I believe he'll be all rookie on the all rookie team this year. Whether he's in the first team, maybe not, but if being on that second team, even I think that he will be by the end of the season, especially he continues on like he's doing now. Going forward, it's fair to make player comparisons because it's the best way that we can describe what we feel about a player. And I agree with what you guys are saying. And, it's fair to think about Boris, or it's fair to think about, Ben or even Draymond. But on the higher end, Joe, just to kind of put it in perspective, I think he could be a Jokic type of player. Now, maybe to temper that, I'm not saying he's going to be a superstar, like he's undeniable, but he's showing the obviously the ability to run things all through him. What is he going to mean to the Spurs? I think is going to be the most important thing. What is he going to mean going forward? No matter who you get in the lottery this year, whether it's a Wembanyama, whether it's Scoot, whether it's whoever, no matter who they get, where is Jeremy going to be in terms of the Spurs? And that's going to be whether or not he's sexy enough to get an all-star nod too, right? Because if he is the type of person that he's going to lead your defense, he's going to anchor your defense because he can guard all 5 of those positions, and he's going to take them on like a Bruce Bowen did with Kobe and all the great stars of that time. Or he's going to be that guy who's going to bring the ball up and set you up and make sure that you're in the right places, but also he's going to make his teammates better. And then he's also going to be that guy that's clutch and that's making shots. I don't think it's unrealistic to say that he's going to be an all-star in the future, but there's a lot of things that have to go into that. And health is number one in that. And number two is, as you guys are saying, it's really kind of a cause of what is the team going to be like? And then what is he needed to be on the team? And is that going to maybe, I don't want to say hold him back, but is that going to be something that doesn't allow him to be seen as that sexy player that you're talking about? So I think that he has the capability. I'm very high on him. Honestly, I flipped my script. I admit I take the foot out of my mouth. I think that he is going to be a very, very good player, a franchise player even. So whether or not he gets all-star nods, all-NBA in the future, I at least think in the rookie season, he's going to be an all-NBA rookie.
Yeah, I think like I said, the ceiling is high for one Jeremy Sochan. If he can go ahead and continue this uptick and working on his game, I think the kid can pretty much, sky's the limit for him. So I look forward to seeing his growth in the coming seasons with the San Antonio Spurs. And hopefully the Spurs can go ahead and turn this around and get back to their winning ways, after the NBA draft. Hopefully they can get a high enough pick to turn the fortunes around for this team and also for the Spurs fans, because look at Rudy, man. He's out here still supporting the team, wearing his Fiesta colors, and I'm still wearing the hat. I'm still supporting the team, and Wesley still got his San Antonio t-shirt on, and so does Ben, so we're all still here giving the team love regardless of whether they win or lose, but we love them more when they win.
It's laundry day for me, Joe, so I had to wear this.
If it was laundry day for you, you'd be wearing your Falcons jersey. Let's be honest, Rudy.
No, that's already packed up for the winter. I packed it up back in, preseason.
Packed that up in September.
I think you packed it up after they lost the Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah. I burned all my Matt Ryan stuff, too.
Yeah, poor Rudy. He's got no love for Matt Ryan. He wanted him gone right after that Super Bowl game.
One of the greatest Falcons, I'll say that, in history. But, we can't win the big game. Get the hell out.
Rudy's petty.
But it's not his fault. It's Kyle Shanahan. There's a big reason why. But that's football, man. This is a two-shot podcast.
You can have Dak Prescott, man.
No, man. You don't want to go down that rabbit hole, Wesley.
I just recovered from the Super Bowl, Wes. Did you want to give me another loser? No. That's all right. No.
So we're going to go ahead and go to you next, Ben. And Ben, we've told you what we thought about Jeremy Sochan, and we need some hope, man. So I'm looking to you to give us some prospects that Spurs fans need to be keeping an eye out on, since the draft is just around the corner. It's going to be coming up soon. We're getting into the tail end here of the season as we start nearing the NBA All-Star break. So what do you got for us, man?
You obviously have Victor Wembanyama. You have Scoot Henderson. I think it's fair to say everybody has heard about them. You know what they're about. They are
Thompson twins.
Thompson twins. Actually just wrote something for Project Spurs the last 2 weeks on both of them. Amen Thompson, probably if he was in the NBA right now, he would be a top 1% athlete. That's how freakishly athletic he is.
I saw some things too on the internet. They had some simulations that the Spurs get the third pick. They're going to pick Amen Thompson.
Makes sense. He's 6'7". He can play point forward for you. You have to worry about his shooting. You have to see how it projects. It's It's been an issue. It's funny, despite like Overtime Elite putting out all these videos and training sessions or whatever, like he still struggles to shoot in games beyond the arc. He doesn't really have a mid-range either. He either gets to the rim or he finds a teammate. I mean, those are kind of his two options right now. All-Star Thompson is similar. His shot is a little better. He's got more of a mid-range game in that regard, but that's also because he's not as explosive as his brother. If Amen Thompson is a top 1% athlete, All-Star Thompson is still probably a top 10% athlete. But the difference between the 1% and the 10% would be noticeable at the NBA level. All-Star Thompson doesn't quite have that powerful, super quick and explosive first step that Amen does. He's still a very good ball handler. He finds teammates. He's also able to pull up in the mid-range. His three-point shot has been better than Amen's so far. That shot is a little more projectable. The big issue that I have, and it's not necessarily their fault, but it's the league and the competition that they play is not great. It's somewhere above high school level ball, but it's nowhere near college or G League ball. It's a high school plus maybe kind of deal, which makes it incredibly hard to evaluate some of what they do. And frankly, they've gotten away with some bad habits in that they can kind of be lazy on defense. Like you're going to look at their numbers and say, oh, well, they rebound the ball well and they rack up steals, but they're shooting passing lanes. They're not completely disciplined on defense. There's a lot of times they're standing straight up on defense. They're not in any sort of stance. They get blown by that way. So I think some discipline is going to be required in that regard. There's a lot of people talking about Cam Whitmore. He still scares me a little bit. He's come on stronger recently, but he missed games to start the season. It was a hand injury, so that's kind of a big deal. He's played really well. I think the biggest obstacle for him is actually going to be that Villanova probably doesn't even make the NCAA tournament. So people aren't going to get to see him as much. You're not going to get an extra game or two out of him. You're going to get through the Big East tournament, and that's it, maybe. But he is a really strong, powerful forward at, I think, 6'7" or 6'8", and he's a guy who can, like, he will finish through you and not even think about it. He has to shore up his shooting as well, but really good finisher, can handle it a little bit, has been doing a lot for Villanova because, one, they lost a Hall of Fame head coach, and two, they don't have the same pieces as they did last year, and they don't quite recruit at the level that a lot of these other schools do. Some talk about Nick Smith, but his injury history is not great. He's played, I think, less than double-digit games this year for Arkansas, which is not helping his case. That was a guy who a lot of people thought should be the first point guard off the board after Scoot. I don't know if that's the case. A lot of people are now saying his teammate, Anthony Black, might be the second point guard taken in the draft. Anthony Black, 6'7", can see over defenses, pretty confident player. Not a great three-point shooter, but I think a lot of that is because he's shouldering a heavier offensive burden now for that team with Nick Smith out and with Trevon Brazile out, who is a really good player. I don't know if he probably wasn't a first-round worthy player, but he's a very good college player. Those are kind of the guys in the range right now. There's a lot of dudes who are potential lottery picks. It's funny. I feel like this year you get a guy at 20, between 20 and 25. That guy could have easily been a lottery pick. And it's just, I think a lot of it is going to come down to preferences for teams this year. I don't think it's going to be best player available. A lot of the, obviously except for 1 and 2, I'd say, and maybe 3 and 4. But after that, it's very much going to be teams deciding on the preference of player they want, whether it's by position or if they're looking for specific attributes. I mean, I've seen Keontae George kind of go all over the place because that's a guy, I mean, who plays at Baylor. So anybody in Texas, you've probably watched him quite a bit. I know Wes has seen him a few times just because he's a Texas Tech guy. He follows Big 12. So you're going to know about Keontae George, but he's a bit of a volume 3-point shooter. But the thing with Baylor is he is their offense at times. Like they have Adam Flagler and LJ Cryer, who are good college point guards, but they're not gunners like Keontae George is. And that's been both a redeeming quality and what some people hate about him, because they're like, well, he's not afraid to shoot it, but also it would be great if he hit more of those shots that he's not afraid to shoot. So that's kind of concerning. He's a solid defender, can defend the 1 or 2 spots. But yeah, there's kind of a smorgasbord of guys between, after like after the third pick, really, I'd say.
Yeah, and I'm just looking here, at several of these mock drafts, and I got to say, not just looking at the mock drafts, but in general, when you're looking at picks anywhere from 1 through 10, it looks like the upcoming NBA draft is going to be very guard heavy. You got a couple of power forwards there that might gain some interest and might move up. But if you're not getting that number 1 pick, and let's say the Spurs aren't getting that number 1 pick, and they're not going to select one Victor Wembanyama, much to the dismay of Spurs fans, again, the best available player might be a shooting guard or a point guard, and they're like, Spurs are already heavy in that department.
Joe, I don't want to interrupt, but there's a guy I completely forgot that we should have been talking about who's been shooting up draft boards, who might overtake Amon Thompson as the number 3 guy, is Brandon Miller out of Alabama. 6'9" power forward, 220, very good shooter.
Michael Porter.
Defender. People will argue that he's old for a freshman. He's going to be 20 by the time the NBA draft happens. So he'll be older than a lot of your other freshmen, but he's still only 20. So there's time to mold him. But like Brandon Miller might actually be a guy who is making his way up to number 3 and solidifying himself as a top 3 option. I mean, there's no way he overcomes Scoot and Wembanyama, but he may end up in kind of that tier of his own, and he'll be the second guy behind those two. I would be remiss if I didn't get a chance to mention Brandon Miller.
Yeah, I've also been hearing things like Jarris Walker, for example, out of Houston, that he might wind up breaking the top 10 as well. So another interesting thing to keep an eye on, because he is 6'8", 220, power forward, so maybe get some interest from a team that might be wanting to go ahead and add some size and athleticism.
I think he might actually, I think Houston might even actually list him at 240. Yeah. And he's not lugging around weight. The kid is strong. He is lean. He is going to bully you. And fortunately for him, his 3-point shot has been improving throughout the season, which is one of the reasons he's kind of jumping up into the top 10 right now. Very good rebounder as well, as you would expect from a guy at that size who moves incredibly well. Plays for Houston, another Texas team. A lot of talent in the state of Texas that people should be watching, folks. No dearth of talent to watch for sure. So yeah, I mean, Jarris Walker in the top 10 would not be surprising to me.
Yeah, but quite honestly, I'll be honest with each one of you guys. If the Spurs, I think, go ahead and go into the NBA draft lottery, probably winning under 20 games, I still got this feeling that they're going to wind up getting at least the 4th or the 5th pick in the draft, which isn't too bad. Spurs fans are going to obviously want that number 1 pick, but if you're getting picks 4 or 5, who's your guy? Who are you going to go with?
Can I chime in on this one?
Yeah, go ahead, man.
So this is and Spurs fans are going to hate me because I haven't really come out and said it too much because I haven't talked Spurs about it so much. Been NFL draft talk lately, but if the Spurs don't get the 1st or 2nd pick, then 100% you need to trade down in this draft, because your talent level is from 3 to 30 is so similar. It's like you're going to get one player at 3 that you could have got the same player at 26 or something. One team they need to contact is Indiana. 3 first-round picks this year. let the Pacers trade up if they want to, grab that 8th spot if they're still there, maybe one of their lower end first round picks, load up on assets, because outside of Scoot and Wembayama, if you're 3 or below, just trade down. You're not going to get an impact player that's going to come in and make this team a playoff team or even a play-in team contender right away with the talent that's in this draft. Collect assets, get a player later on in the first round, get a couple of extra picks, maybe even in the second round. But definitely, if you fall within the top, if you fall out of the top 2, Spurs fans, you're going to hate me, but you know what? Bring the hate. Doesn't matter to me. You've got to trade down. You've got to.
Hey, and
Pretty
also let me
careful
point this
here.
out. There to get the number 1 pick is so rare, and for the number 1 pick to work out and be somebody who's just absolutely like the franchise, out of this
Changing
world type
player.
of player is also so rare. I mean, think about it. The Spurs got so lucky to get Tim. They got so lucky to get David, and those were, just not that far apart, about 10 years apart. That just doesn't happen. I kind of feel like, I know people aren't going to want to hear that, but they've already gotten lucky twice. And I agree with what Rudy's saying in this. I had kind of spoken with some people too, and Ben, you might hate this idea, but I had kind of thought with Spurs and what they have asset wise, it would be kind of neat to see them package some things that they do have to get both Thompsons, or to, if they can't go and get like, Wemby or also Scoot, that they could, like you said, Rudy, move back. You could get some great players at that 10-9, spot. And again, if you got yet another pick in this draft and you're able to shore that up, imagine you could get 2 incredibly impact players just from, that coveted 4 or 5, pick that you had. So, I agree. It's at this point, it's Wembayama and Scoot or bust. And if you don't get them, I think, you just have to think about, you're going to get quality no matter what you do. You look at what OKC has done. And I know that obviously Chet is hurt and he's not there yet, but man, my goodness, you think about how well they're set up for the future.
And if you're talking about the Pacers trading up for possibly a 3rd or 4th pick, I mean, they're not looking for a Wembanyama because they just shored up Miles Turner and renegotiated his contract. They have their center. I mean, what do the Pacers need? They have a point guard. They have their big man. I mean, they could use a forward to help them out. And maybe, you probably don't pick Amin Thompson if you're the Pacers just because you have your point guard. You like Tyrese Halliburton. We're not going to try and bring another guy in here and compete with you. That would be crazy after the season Halliburton is having and after the trade they made to get him with the Kings, which I think has helped out both teams, by the way. But actually, if you're the Spurs, you're hoping that Charlotte once again figures itself out and wins some games.
They're not, Ben.
They're past getting to the playing game. They're past getting to the postseason. I know that. I'm past that. I'm still salty, but I'm moving past it. But if Charlotte wins some games like they were supposed to this season, it gets them out of the bottom 3 there, gives the Spurs that 14 or whatever % chance it is to get the top pick. And if they're in the bottom 3, I believe they're guaranteed to go no worse than the 5th pick if you're the Spurs. So that guarantee is also nice to have.
Yeah, it's nice to have, but like you said, it's not guaranteed. And Paul, what are the Spurs percentage chances right now if they were to go ahead and keep on, let's say, losing at their current trajectory? They're probably going to be winning between 21, 22 games when it's all said and done. Hopefully less than that. But what are their chances currently of getting that number 1 pick overall?
Well, they've done the right thing right now. They've lost this. They're on the 6-game losing streak, which has helped them, get worse than Charlotte. So they're actually they're at 27 right now, which is where you want to be. You want to be either 27, 28. 28, 29, or 30. The bottom 3 worst teams in Ben's right. You get 14% lottery odds. So they got to basically hold where they're at right now, which is tough because these players are on a 6-game losing streak, and so they got to hope that some of those teams they're actually getting closer to Detroit. So Detroit's at 29 right now. So that's kind of what they got to do. Is they're in the right spot right now, and they could make the roster way worse by trading Jakob Poeltl, Doug McDermott, and Josh Richardson next week, so that could help to continue with the tank. But if not, they got to be very careful about winning games. And I know that's tough to tell the team because the players want to win games. They don't want to be on this losing streak, but they're actually doing the right thing right now if you're looking at the lottery.
Yeah. So, I mean, let me ask you another question here, Paul, because the team, like I was saying, if they wind up breaking in and getting that, one of the top picks, probably my guess would be either 4 or 5, being realistic here, because I don't know if Lightning can strike 3 times. It would be great if it does, and the Spurs wind up getting that first pick again. But realistically, if they wind up getting that 4th or 5th pick, are you going to be disappointed if they wind up drafting another guard? Because I mean, like I said, when you go 1 through 10, you have Victor Wembanyama at center, and then you have 1 or 2 power forwards in there, and the rest are going to be shooting guards or point guards. I mean, what would happen if they wind up picking up another guard?
No, I wouldn't be surprised just because I know what like the percentages are, and like just me alone, like before I prepped the Spurs cast, I do the lottery simulator and Tankathon. It took me 19 tries to get them number 1 the other day. The time before that, 8 tries. Yeah, so I know that getting number 1 is not something I'm going to be expecting, or even number 2. So what I mean, I'm not the draft person. Like I always go to Ben for any kind of like who he would trust. But now Rudy's actually throwing a wrench here, because now when I talk to Ben in the future, I'm going to be asking Ben, is it better that they take this guy at 3, or should they just trade the picks? Because I'm not versed in the draft. I don't watch much college basketball at all, so I always usually go to Ben for that. But if I'm gonna ask Ben that question though, should they trade the pick at 5, or should they draft a player here? And what player? So yeah, again, I'm not expecting them to land Wembanyama or Scoot, but that would be a surprise if they actually got one of those 2 players.
Yeah, this is the thing too. I think if the Spurs wind up trading down, as Rudy was saying, that would signify to me that they're going to go ahead and draft for need versus going ahead and getting the best available player. Thoughts on that, Rudy?
I'm sorry, what was that, Joe?
I said if the Spurs wind up trading down in this upcoming draft, to me that would signal them going ahead and they would be willing to trade down to go ahead and draft for the need of the team versus best available player.
Yeah, trading down. I mean, so the San Antonio Spurs, like I said, they're not right there playoff contenders right now. They've got a lot of needs actually still. I mean, you see Jeremy Sochan, you see Keldon Johnson, you see Devin Vassell. That's kind of your core right there. You've got to improve the point guard position. You still don't know what's going on with Jakob, so you're going to probably need a big man. So that's what I'm saying. Trade down, get some assets. It's not going to happen in this draft. To me, this is a pretty weak draft. You outside of maybe the top 2 or 3 guys in this draft, you're not going to get these Hall of Fame type players. You're not going to get these, instant impact players. This past draft that we had was that draft right there, and it's going to be like that for a little while. But yeah, it's just more like trading down. Just get some assets, get a couple of draft picks. If you get a couple of second rounders, hey, no big deal, second rounders. The thing is that what I want to say too is this: if you are lucky enough to get number 1 and you get Wembanyama, we had the pleasure of, like Wesley said, you had David, you had Tim. The difference between those 2 guys and Victor Wembanyama is these guys were technically veterans when they were being drafted. I mean, 4 years in college basketball, very good guys, very good IQ guys, everything like that. My problem is players these days, no matter if you're drafted 1 or 30, you have no idea what these kids are thinking anymore. They want a bigger market. They're coming to San Antonio. I'm going to put in my time for 4 years, and I'm bailing because why? I want to be in New York. I want to be in this market. I want to be over here. I can't get the exposure. So you're going to have 4 good years of Victor Wembanyama, hopefully. What you want to do is, like I said, if you land him, great. But if you don't, trade down, get assets, better your team, set your team up for the future, a la OKC. That's one team that's going to be competing for a very long time. Take a note out of there. He is Sam Presti, former Spurs. We should learn from him.
Hey, Ben, I got a quick question for you. You might find it comical.
Oh,
if the Spurs wind up trading down and they miss out on Victor Wembanyama, could the 6'11" center out of Duke, Kyle Filipowski, be the poor man's Victor Wembanyama?
I mean, not the poor man's Victor Wembanyama.
Can't shoot.
you get that guy in the teens of the 20s. I think it's a great pick. A lot of people. I mean, he was a 5-star recruit going to Duke. He is and Duke had the number 1 and the number 2 recruits in the country coming to play, and he has outplayed both of them so far this season. Dariq Whitehead has not played a whole lot because of injury. Derek Lively had some injury issues, but he's also very much just a defensive big. He's a lob threat, and that's about it. Like he doesn't have a post move. He's an athlete. That's it. Kyle Filipowski has been the scoring leader for Duke on many occasions this year. That's actually not a bad pick, again, in the teens early 20s, I think it's a good pick at this point. He's shown that he's better than a lot of people thought he would be. He can shoot from outside a bit. He's a solid rebounder. He has a few go-to post moves. You can shoot it in the mid-range. He's not going to be able to guard much of anybody outside of fives, which, yeah, that's a problem because he's a bit slow. He's not super athletic, but I still think he'd be a solid pick. And if the Spurs decide we want another forward or center, that's a guy you can certainly go for.
You think he would do an ample role in filling the gap that's left if one Jakob Poeltl decides to leave?
I mean, he's not going to be as good defensively as Jakob Poeltl is, but he'll try. But
He'll be a body.
He's from Duke, so he's got to be terrible. There's no big man from Duke that's
Oh,
really good.
Rudy and his hate for Duke are clearly evident here in this take.
Who's the last big man from Duke to actually do anything?
Cherokee Park. Oh, wait a minute.
Mike
How-
Jaminski?
You got to go way back, Rudy. You're talking about going back to the 90s, man.
Checks notes number 2 pick Jahlil Okafor.
Oh, God.
Oh,
Jesus.
Lord. Who?
I guarantee you hardly anybody knew how to spell that kid's name. Let alone being
Well, hey,
number
at least
3.
Christian Laettner lucked his way onto a team, on the dream team. I mean, come on.
Yeah, that is
There was
true.
that.
That is true.
If you want to be an NBA player, don't go to Duke. It's rare to be a good NBA player.
Ooh, shade.
You don't want to be Cam Reddish or RJ
Oh,
Barrett.
man. Rudy's just stirring the pot. All the Duke
Grant
fans are
Hill
gonna be
or-
coming for him.
No, I know the show's coming to an end, but I've got to tell you, and Ben, I want to see if you agree with me. I've had a couple of people talk to me about this, and they are swearing up and down that the Spurs should somehow get, and this is later in the draft, one Zach Edey out of Purdue. And I'm like, this kid is, like I said, he's all the hype, the best player in college basketball.
No.
But Zach Edey is not the answer anywhere in the NBA. This guy he can have an okay career, but no, man, he's having that season that you go to the YMCA and you're just balling left and
What's
right.
that one kid? You kind of reminds me of that one kid. What was the name of that one guy that the Spurs had kind of wanted to take a look at, and they brought him back like 2 seasons ago? I think it was during training camp, and then immediately they just said, "Nah, man, we're good. We're off of him," and they sent him back over there to play with the Shanghai Sharks or something. What was his name? He was a point guard or something.
Jimmer Fredette? No.
Yeah, it was Fredette.
Oh,
It was
Fredette.
Good
Fredette.
old Jimmer.
Yeah, yeah.
I forgot they brought over Fredette. Yeah, that man's balling out in China. He doesn't want to come back here.
Oh yeah, dude.
He got to actually play defense in the NBA.
Yeah.
Do they?
Zach Edey's Boban Marjanovic, except, I mean, Boban's not exactly the great center you
He doesn't
want.
have the personality of Boban.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't.
Zach Edey will not find himself in a Goldfish commercial.
No.
With the
definitely
little hand, with the little hand.
Or John Wick.
not. Yeah.
Or
Okay.
yes.
Stay out of my DMs when it comes to Zach Edey. That guy's no.
Hey, Zach Edey late in the first round. Late in the
No, don't say it. Don't. I will click
No.
off this episode. I'll log off quick. Don't say it in the first round.
Listen, he's 7'4". He's
Oh.
280. He's immovable. I'm not, and I know the NBA is not a post game. He's going to get killed there. He's not fast enough to defend anybody other than slow fives. I understand that.
But you don't take him in the first round, though.
Not. It has to be after. It has to be somewhere late 20s if you do. It's hard. It's one of those things where it's like he's he's going to be national player of the year. He has put up the stats. He has done everything that people have asked of him. You have to give him a shot. It's one of those kinds of picks. I'm not here to say
disown you, Ben.
Zach Edey in the lottery. Like, I'm not saying you should do that. I get it. Like, some guys are just meant to be great in college. They're not meant to translate to the NBA. Like,
I can
Christian
see it in his
Laettner.
glasses right now, Ben. He's hovering over the block
may not
button.
translate to the NBA because the NBA doesn't play a back to the basket game. If this was the 90s, Zach Edey would be the number one pick. No
Probably
question.
so. Probably
Nope.
so in the 90s. Yeah.
Well, hell, he can stay in college and make more money with NIL anyway. Why even get drafted? He's not going to get for sure first round money. I mean,
Yeah, if you
stay
can't
in
get
college, go get your
guaranteed-
NIL deals until somebody really wants you in the NBA. Nobody's going to want them. Well, not for the
I mean,
lack
he-
of defense.
and
We're
he
going to
might
have to
like
bring in
he
this
might
show
really
right
like
in
him.
here.
painter anyway, so he might stay for him.
Yeah,
He
we're
probably
gonna go
wishes he could go the Frank Harris route and stay
Oh,
like 9 years in college.
this show's getting out of control. That's why we got to start bringing it to an end. But before we do, we're just going to get everybody's real quick takes here. We do have the Super Bowl coming up, and we know that it is going to be my most unfavorite team in the NFL, which is going to be the Philadelphia Eagles. I hate the Eagles. And it's going to be the Kansas City Chiefs. I ain't got a dog in this fight, but I'm pulling for Mahomes just because out of pure hate for the Eagles, being a lifelong Cowboys fan. You can come at me all you want because Wesley's a Cowboys fan as well. So we're used to it, man. We're used to being disappointed, just like Rudy, being a lifelong Falcons fan. We're used to disappointment. But I got to go around the horn here. Paul, who do you got in the Super Bowl? Do you like Mahomes or do you like Jalen Hurd and the Philadelphia Eagles?
Well, I don't really watch football these days, so I'm just gonna go with Mahomes. That's the only player I recognize from both teams. So I don't. So
there you go.
Chiefs. I
Paul
don't know.
Paul said,
else.
"My homie's my homie." Gotcha, man.
There you
All
go.
right.
That's the only guy I recognize.
What about you, Wes? Who do you got? Eagles or Chiefs?
Okay, might shock you. My heart wants Mahomes, but I just think the Chiefs are too beat up. I think the Eagles have more depth, and that may.
Are you rooting for the Eagles?
I think the Eagles will win. I'm going to cheer for the Chiefs, though.
No, they're good, man. Good man. Well said. Because I was about to hit that block button.
I would never cheer for the Eagles, Joe. You know this. Never,
Damn right you won't.
Never.
You can't.
No.
What about you, Ben? Chiefs or Eagles?
I think the Eagles are just too good this year, man. They're a team of destiny right now. I think it's got to be them.
So Ben's going Eagles. Gotcha. What about you, Rudy? I know you don't like either team, but who you got to pick one?
Well, considering I'm a Falcon fan, I'm going to stick with Birds. I'm going to go with the Eagles this time. And this is why I say this is the game where you're going to see Tyreek Hill being missed by the Kansas City Chiefs. It's the deep ball. I think, Kelsey's going to have a good game. I think Mahomes is going to be great. It's going to be a great Super Bowl. But give me the Eagles for the win. They just look way too dominant all season when they're healthy. And I don't think the Chiefs have enough to get it done.
Yeah, I think the Eagles defense might be a bit too much for the Chiefs to overcome, but you can never count out one Patrick Mahomes in the heart of a champion there. I think that Mahomes can come through in the clutch, even though he's playing on just one leg. He's playing on one leg, and he's still playing better than one Dak Prescott. So that's all I got to say about that. I'm going for the Chiefs either way. So we'll go ahead and bring this show to an end. I'm going to go ahead and put the nice graphic right here where you can go ahead and follow each and every single one of these guys on social media, especially on Twitter. Make sure you go and give Paul Garcia love, and also Rudy Campos Jr. with Sweep the League. Make sure you tune into that. Make sure you also subscribe to his podcast. It's a good podcast there, and they kind of go off the rails on occasion.
Oh yeah, we definitely do. This last one we had a top 5 hottest players in Candace Avila's eyes left in the playoffs. So the topics I get presented with, before the show, just I scratch my head all the time. But hey, it's a fun show, so
there you go. Make sure you go and subscribe, and you go ahead and listen to Sweep the League. And Wesley, you can go ahead and follow him on Twitter, and the same thing with Ben. Go ahead and make sure you follow all these guys on Twitter. So for Paul Garcia, Rudy Campos Jr., Wesley Perkins, and Benjamin Bornstein, I'm Joe Garcia. Thank you guys for watching and listening to another episode of the Two Shots Podcast. And like we always say, spread the love, stop the hate, be kind. We're out. Peace.